offseason.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BETSPERTS.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. We work our way through the off season here, getting closer and closer to July 4th. Typically, we would do a big old hot dog eating contest podcast here on the eve of July 4th. But the markets are a little messed up this year. Andy can explain to you why via DM. Maybe we'll do a hot dog eating stream closer to July 4th.
We could do one over the weekend, but yeah, they had like only 2 of the qualifiers. Our favorite girl, Mickey, is out because she's super pregnant, and no doctor is going to let you ingest that amount of hot dogs and sodium when you're like 8 months along. So the hot dog contest is kind of bupkis this year.
The hot dog eating syndicate told us to take the year off, so we're going to take the year off. That actually afforded us the perfect opportunity to cover a sport which we consistently do not give our listeners due attention, and that is the sport of college football. Obviously, a lot of parallels between the NFL and college football. We are NFL guys. We choose to stay in our lane and really only handicap NFL on a week-by-week basis during the regular season. But there are very smart people that we know in the college football space that we really feel like we ought to help shed a light on so that you guys can follow the right people, get the advantage information to help you make better wagers. And today we are excited to welcome for the first time to the Deep Dive, a guy that I think I have followed about college football info 10 years, maybe conservatively. Many so pretty excited to get to talk to him. He writes and does content for 24/7 Sports. Of course, the Nolecast. I'm sure some more we'll get the full rundown from you in a bit here. But welcome to the Deep Dive, Mr. Bud Elliott.
Guys, long time listener, first time caller. This is exciting.
Oh, I love the setup. Listen to that sound. That is good.
Yes.
Are you guys still doing the halftime periscopes for the NFL as well for this year?
Yeah. We're getting warmed up, getting ready for those because more got put on our plate this year. We have a week 17. That is, 3 more periscopes, I suppose, because they'll have a Monday night, a Thursday night for that extra week thrown in there. So a lot on our plate this year, and then that kind of makes me, we had the outline. But now I have an instant question right off the top. Like, when does college football start? Because I always feel like,
it's a
Labor Day.
But there's like a little there's like a week
there
0.
A week,
isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. That's
isn't there
my
a week
question.
0?
Is there
the
a
week that
0?
we all go to the Vegas and sign up for the Super Contest, typically,
Sneaks
or now
up
the Circa Contest, which is now the Premier Contest, so I've heard.
Oh, it's different this year?
I'm just making a joke because a lot of folks
one is starting to be better than the other.
Yeah. Circus strong arming the crown away from the Westgate in terms of top football contest. But regardless, is there a week 0 this year?
There is. So most of the games are going to be on Labor Day weekend, but there's always a couple games on the Wednesday, the Thursday, the Friday, because ESPN's got to fill inventory. CBS Sports Network has got to fill inventory, and they're like, hey, this game might suck if it's in a slot of 10 other games, but if we flex it out, it's not that bad. You guys want to play on a Wednesday? And all the schools are like, do we have a choice with our TV contract? The networks are like, no. So let's go play midweek.
I remember some funny ones too. There's like they did a California and
there's
Hawaii
one in
played
Australia.
in Australia 1 year. You remember that one?
Yeah.
There's some weird ones always that are kind of kick off the season. But as far as kind of your prep in the offseason goes, when do you really kind of get into the meat of your offseason prep? Is it pretty much right after the national championship game? Are you already kind of ahead of the ball before the season ends? Or, what is your kind of timetable for handling the offseason?
Yeah, so I pretty much just am updating my spreadsheets as soon as the season is over. I'm trying to figure out, which recruits are really going to be instant impact guys, which recruits are more, highly rated because they're rated more based on their ceiling rather than, what their instant impact could be. And you got to be monitoring a couple things. So it used to just be who's going pro early, right? You redline everybody who ran at eligibility, and then you marked off everybody who went pro early. You went and reviewed, okay, who missed the season due to injury that maybe was good the year prior to the one that we just played. But now you also have to watch transfer portal up until actually tomorrow, because tomorrow is the last day that kids can actually jump into the portal and be eligible for the fall season without a waiver. You can still kind of be eligible if you get a waiver. I don't know what the grounds for the waiver would be, but tomorrow is the last day. So if you are not into the portal by July 1 for this season, and in future years, it'll be May 1, by the way, just with COVID, they extended it out.
Sure.
So like the portal thing is a really big deal. And I know for us at 24/7 Sports, not totally gambling related, but certainly gambling related. We're trying to talk to coaches and talk to high school coaches and everything. Hey, why is this kid transferring? Right? Like, did he suck in practice? He never really saw the field. What's the deal? And in some cases, like, yeah, man, he doesn't get it. Like he doesn't have that mentality that's going to allow him to be successful at the college level. So maybe a change of scenery will help him. Or like I had one coach tell me, hey, we love this kid. He just ran out of drug tests he could pass, man. And if you transfer schools, and he's going to be a starter. He's going to be a starter at a championship contender. So
we got a decent wrestler transferred in high school, and it was like, well, how did we end up with this kid? Like, oh, he got expelled for a bomb threat. Like, but
classic.
Yeah, classic. Right? Like, hey, guess what? You're on the team, bud. And that makes me think too. Like, honestly, you just gave me a stomach ache, really, talking transfer portal, because I do college basketball and I haven't caught up on that. And that is, 300 some teams. What a dynamic mess. And I don't want to put you on the spot with like an exact number, but like how many people went into the transfer portal roughly in college football? In even in just like the power conferences, or I'm not sure if you've broken it down by anything like that.
I actually, I think I have it right here. Chris Hummer is a good follow on Twitter. He's kind of our transfer portal guru.
Cool.
For it. I think we had like 1,000 kids, but I don't know if it's broken down. That's not all FBS, right? So I think that's FCS and D2 as well.
Still a lot.
Yeah, right.
Wow,
so
man.
Now for our ratings, I think we ended up putting new star ratings, I believe, on 200 kids for the upcoming cycle, which is still a lot, to be honest, right? Yeah. Everybody else is sort of, if we missed on you, we missed on you. Otherwise, we're just going to kind of slap 2 stars. And that's from talking to all these staffs. Hey, who are you really excited to get? Who looked good for you guys in spring? Why did you get this kid? And sometimes we're like, look, man, we're really tight with this high school coach, and he was ready for change of scenery. He wanted to come back home. His mom was sick. So there's a lot of stuff. It's not just, hey, take his high school rating and then regress it a little bit because he had to transfer. But you do kind of start from your high school evaluation you made on the kid, since we put all the ratings on the recruits here at 24/7. But then you got to really deep dive into it to use the pod name to figure out what the reason for the kid transfer is and the likelihood of success at the next level.
You know what? This is like blowing my mind, because Andy may have his own reason. And Andy is a masochist that bets college basketball anyways, but I stay away from college football specifically because of this. The amount of work and the minutiae and the details to get all of this right is just mind-blowing. And yes, if you want to do a good job, you have to have it at this level. I mean, shoot, man, last year, I feel like all of the actionable college football, I bet, was like we had heard or saw a weird beat report was like, oh yeah, that quarterback not going to play, or like, this wide receiver, his top wide receiver is going to be out. No one knows.
Full on COVID.
All of that stuff was so incredible last year, and the places we heard it and where it came from, where all that originated. Oh my God. There's no way anyone can honestly do a fair job of covering that all. So hat tip to you guys for trying to kind of go through and star rate everyone for their specific situation, which is what you have to do if you want to take it to that level. So
how many of those games did we bet that didn't even happen?
Exactly. Your biggest edges ended up being canceled.
At least 33%.
Yeah. And it was never confirmed it was Mond, but people implied it was him, and that game didn't happen. And then the Liberty game that didn't have, we were way ahead on that one, didn't happen. But no, it is wild. And I'd like to talk again to add to Drew's point, and again, hat tip what you guys are doing. Like the people that we know that bet college football actively, heavily and stuff, like they'll say stuff during games like, hey, which linebacker was that got hurt? Because if it's 55, he matters.
Was that LB 55 or 50?
Really?
I couldn't see. And
Like I don't,
oh, wow.
yeah, I don't know. Like, and then we're scrambling like, hey, is this guy important or not? And we don't even know the quarterback's name in some of these games.
Well, yeah. I mean, what year was this? 2018 when Will Greer went out for West Virginia and announced he wasn't going to play the bowl game. I had seen the backup play a lot in 7-on, and I knew he couldn't play. Like, this kid, he can't play. And so I was at my in-laws and I grabbed the laptop and I just every live account I had. My wife's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Just
don't worry about that.
I'm in the zone. Against some Mountaineers.
I'm paying for
our
Christmas vacation. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's good. So I guess what kind of a team does it take to follow all this? Do you have a team of like 20 guys doing this?
So we have a really good team 24/7. Chris Hummer primarily runs it, and then we have a bunch of guys in the background who are fishing for information. We have, importantly here, a network of team sites. I mean, we have 60-something team sites, so pretty much one for all the big schools out there. The coaching staffs, they talk to us. Why? Because unlike a lot of the regular media out there, we talk to the recruits.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not out there interviewing tons of recruits anymore, but like, you know, our team site guys, they're going to these regional camps and these local camps over the weekend, and the schools that they can't talk on the record about it, but they damn sure want to know what's going on with this kid. Did he say anything about me? What did he think? Like, you know, who drove him to the camp? Because they're trying to figure out like who does the transportation for this kid, right? Sure. If he does. So you end up swapping a lot of info as to who will actually be good as a transfer and who won't, you know? And then we also have our guys who do the recruiting rankings are really good. We've been the most accurate service of the major three for I think 3 or 4 years running now, and they put a lot of time into it. So we lean on those guys as well. What did you remember about this guy? All right, was this more of an upside grade or was it more of like a sure thing grade, and go from there. But it's I would say probably like 15 people probably touch it, and then that's also talking to our team site folks.
I love that. Last question about the transfer portal. Are you expecting a bunch tomorrow? Like, is there going to be like a late crunch here?
I think we're going to see some. Tennessee had a kid who's a D tackle who started 6 games for them jump in right as we hit record tonight.
Jeez. Wow. Okay.
And then
these markets are going to move. Okay.
Maybe the Arizona State stuff. That's the other one I'm watching. Like if I think about what a waiver situation might be, if they had something go down there, I don't know if you guys have been following that, but
are they in trouble?
It was playing to win the games, paying to win the game. Excuse me.
Yeah, apparently they were flying kids in to visit during COVID, which is like not allowed to pay for kids to visit, and you're not allowed to have kids visit during COVID when you have like an 18-month COVID lockdown. And they were just like, allegedly, of course.
All alleged until the NCAA rules on that. No, it makes me. I was going to make the comparison about like all that work you're doing, and we're like complaining that I was going to say like, oh no, we have like 6 new offensive coordinators in the NFL. We have to like figure. And it leads me to the question like, how much work does that take with all the coaches that move around? I mean, coaches retiring, coaches moving to the pros, moving to high school, moving to other teams. I mean, the co-offensive coordinators, like just figuring out who's even calling plays for some of these lower level teams. Like, is that all part of it too? When you like, does that play into some of the grading as well? Like, hey, this guy's going here, but they're losing some coaching, and we have to downgrade a kid.
So I think the coaching, it can matter in its sum if you understand this kid's going to a certain place where the fit is really good, right? Like, hey, he had another player at a previous stop who was a very similar player to this. He knows how to utilize him. Okay, like for instance, Bailey Zappi, right? He's the quarterback at Houston Baptist, the FCS team that put up like 50-something points on Texas Tech this year. He and their offensive coordinator hightailed it to Western Kentucky. I'm going to bet Western Kentucky team total over and game over every single, I was like, well, I probably shouldn't have said it, but that's, I'm not going to give you the other ones, but like the thing is, what you need to do is if you kind of keep in mind, like who's on which coaching tree, you can sort of just kind of put them into buckets, right? This guy wants to go fast. This guy wants to chuck the ball at the time. This guy just wants to run the ball first and second down and then have his quarterback hopelessly bail him out. on 3rd and 8.
Yeah.
Which is, you guys being in the NFL.
It's NFL material. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Washington.
I think I don't remember if we were talking about, if I was messaging you about this or if I was trying to track it down from somewhere else, but I remember that coaching move specifically because of the difference in pace of play was it was like first percentile to 99th. And so it was like, this is going to be a big deal. And if that guy had any input on the game plan for the bowl, it was like, well, this has got to be an over. Like, we got to hit this.
now.
You remember we were messaging everyone like, was he in the meeting? Like, because there was all these reports he was on campus. And it was like, well, is he actually there, like helping? Like, what's going to happen? But regardless,
we could do 3 hours on bowl season because it's like, and people will make this joke about the NBA and college ball and the NFL and college football. Like, they're not the same sport because they're kind of not. I mean, it's football, it's basketball. But they're not the same sport. Bowl season is not the same sport.
No, I don't bet the Bulls pre-flop.
Bowl season is a whole different. Like, you talk about the mess that you have with the transfer portal. Just the last few years of bowl season, trying to figure out who's out. Like you mentioned,
Florida.
the Greer thing, and not only that, but like the coaching thing. Florida.
Oklahoma was incredible.
Like Trask definitely shouldn't have played in that game. That cost him a bunch of money. But yeah, the coaching stuff there, you'll have coaches who are taking other jobs and they say, well, I'm gonna stick it out for the bowl game. And you can tell, like, well, this guy doesn't really give a shit. Or they're bringing in partial new staffs, and it's like they're bringing in a new staff and they're going to game plan for some team they haven't played in 16 years. And again, this will definitely work out even without 3 weeks to prep.
And with the early signing period now on December 18th, some of these bowls are played like literally that week. So these coaches are. What do you think they care about more, a bowl game or getting their class signed?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it's
time to go recruiting.
Yeah, if it's the Tax Slayer Bowl or the Bad Boy Mower Bowl, that's a big deal.
If you can get a Gasparilla trophy.
Tough call. Yeah, if you can get a Gasparilla, that's a tough call, man. Really. The giant cheese. You want that giant cheese trophy? You can only get that one way. There's only one way to get that.
And if you're TCU and your quarterback punches the bouncer the night before the game, then you can't get it at all.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's kind of pivot a little bit, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on what transpired last year. As we were kind of mentioning, I was looking just at my balance sheet, my bankroll of college football plays. Great year, great season. Nothing weird, nothing wrong about it. I would take many more of those. But you boil it down, and it was just total freaking chaos. A lot of these teams only played 6 games. You had so many cancellations and just guys available. And, again, kind of back to the million moving parts thing. The hell do you do with any of that data, right? Like, was this a good team performance because they just happened to play great that day? Or was the opposing team missing half of their defense? Like, which was it? Who knows? Do you remember? I don't remember. I mean, what do you kind of do with last year's data? And does that impact your ability to kind of put together a reasonable prior for any team heading into this season?
To me, you can't completely throw it out, but I also think if you weight it like you would normally weight a full season's worth of data, it's probably a mistake. Like you mentioned, think about the opening game. For Michigan, Minnesota was missing, like, of their 9 starting linemen on both sides of the ball, they were missing like 7 of them. And Michigan looked great. I was like, oh man, I totally underrated Michigan this year. And then I realized, actually, Minnesota's got all these guys out. It was really a tough year for me. I try to at least pre-flop. Is that me? I think it's true.
That's 100% true. He actually lives on a racetrack, and they're coming around the 3rd turn. I'm sure that's Drew's neighbor just being an a-hole.
Yeah, my neighbor's gardener just decided to blow leaves right in. Yeah.
I'm glad you can hear it too, because I'm a little under the weather. I took some Robitussin today. I'm kind of out of it. I'm like, can other people hear this?
Oh man. So
back to the Minnesota Michigan game, like putting the context to a game like that for sure.
I think that I was actually speaking. You guys know Bill Connolly, obviously.
Yeah.
So good friend of mine. I worked in the Mid Nation for almost a decade, and I was speaking with Bill and about how much do you count the priors from last year, and I said maybe you could do a bit of a weighted formula for how many games they actually played, right? Like I want to count pretty much all of Alabama's, but
yeah.
On the other hand, look at Arizona State. They played 4 games. One of them was a 70-7 win, if I recall, against Arizona, which, I mean, granted, you're going to cut it off at some point for garbage time anyway, depending on what your definition is for the college game. But that Arizona team had totally quit. So, like, they're jumping the power rankings when you beat somebody to 70-7, and you only have 4 data points there on the year is going to be kind of interesting. So I think you need to really account for how many games were played, and then it sucks. Like, it's a lot of effort, but you have to go back and look at your notes on this stuff. And I think you have to be willing to manually adjust your power ratings now and just say, hey, okay, what happened here? Like Penn State, a team that was pretty high on coming into the year. They didn't get a real spring. We know just from talking to folks, they were some of the people. They're one of the teams that took the COVID protocols very seriously. You know, like they didn't host like secret practices over the summer, and they weren't doing all that kind of stuff. And I think it showed on the field. And they also had new coordinators, and they weren't really able to install their stuff, right? And then they also got kind of unlucky. So I go back and I look at the teams that I was high on entering last year and see, okay, why did they flop? Like, I know Penn State's recruited a bunch of really good guys. And Franklin previously has been a pretty reliable coach. I mean, he doesn't beat Ohio State, but he gives them hell oftentimes, and they go to BCS bowls and whatnot. So going through all your teams right there, and actually it sucks. There's not a great math answer to this, I don't think, in such a weird situation, because even these teams that got a bunch of games in, like Mississippi State elected to play with 46 kids. You were allowed to cancel a game and still pick up your game check if you were under 53. And Mississippi State's like, no, we're going to play Georgia with 46 kids. And they got crushed. But like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that about Alabama. Like, it felt like once everybody kind of took a loss in the SEC, those programs all kind of,
But even to Bud's point, like maybe this Alabama season was a little easier to take a look at as a whole and grade. It's like, well, they didn't get to play the Citadel in November this year. Yeah, you don't throw in like that Troy game or whatever they decided to play. It was all SEC competition. Granted, they're the cream of the crop, but Drew, when we were putting together the outline and starting to put together some ideas this morning, and I didn't really help at all because I took it ezy this afternoon. Well, I wasn't
He's
feeling
dealing
well.
with a little bit of a.
This is my flu game.
Yeah.
Oh, I am
this
too.
is my Jordan flu game. But Frank has me convinced I have the Delta variant now. But either way, Drew. I'm kidding. I just have the sniffles. But Drew asked me like, well, what do you have for this? I'm like, there's only one question, and it is how the hell do you rate your priors from the year before? And it sucks because I kind of knew the answer was what you were going to say was, a shitload of hard work, manual, tedious, context, digging through game notes, digging through box scores, figuring out like, why did this game end up like this? And it sucks because
let's take
that's what we're dealing with everywhere. Like, you think college basketball, like you look at some of those teams and be like, what the hell happened to this team? And then it's like, oh, they didn't play for 40 days. Like because that was legitimately a thing. Like, man, what?
Like San Francisco, right? Or it was one of those teams I remember, like from the West Coast, didn't play in college hoops for it was like 4 or 5 weeks.
I think it might have been USF. There was a couple teams that had like, they just didn't play for a full month or better. There's some weird things. And we always harp on this about everything. Context. Like, you can't just look at a score and the team with more points is better, I guess. So it's just a shitload more work this year. And
let's take it a step further because this is a market. It's a liquid market. There are a lot of people that bet into these numbers. Everybody's dealing with the same problems. So what do we expect? Like the priors probably weaker than ever for just how they open these, right? Like, these markets should move more. They should be more volatile just because everybody's going to have a different opinion. Some people are going to throw out last season entirely and just use recruits and who's available and, build something from scratch, right? Like, there's going to be all kinds of different approaches to coming up with priors for college football teams. And there's going to be a lot of people that just pick up the Phil Steele magazine and use those, or subscribe to ESPN Plus and use Bills. And then, that's going to set the market. So if you can come up with something that's a little bit, just a little bit better, you should have an edge, right?
I think so. And you also have to be willing to throw out your stuff earlier this year, I believe, right? Okay. Like and realize, hey, I weighted this too heavily or not properly and be willing to get rid of it. I suspect. The other thing you have to really count for this year is if your formula uses some sort of returning production number, it needs to be heavily weighted on relative returning production, because what the NCAA did in order to entice all these guys not to opt out of the season, they said, if you played last year, you didn't lose a year of eligibility. So all the seniors who want to come back, if the school will have them back, are seniors again. All the freshmen are freshmen again, and they didn't have to burn a red shirt. So, and this year you're allowed to carry more than the 85 guys on scholarship. Now for next year, we think the NCAA is probably going to botch this, right? They're probably just going to say, get back to 85 in 1 year. And schools are saying, well, wait a second. We still have all these kids who you gave an extra year eligibility to. So I feel for the kids, but practically there's a lot of teams out there who are returning, 80, 88, 90% of their production from last year. And so if you're just kind of cherry picking, oh, look at all this returning production. Well, guess what? Everybody except for BYU, Northwestern, and maybe one or two more, they returned pretty much everybody. Not a lot of teams lost all that much.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that is actually how that worked out. Wow. So basically, but this isn't an unknown, right?
Right.
The returning
everybody should know about this.
Yeah. The returning starters thing, I feel like, is the narrative that I hear beat into the ground around college football offseason talk the most regularly. I just assume it's built into the number, right? Like I assume you're not going to be like, oh wait, this team has 26 returning starters.
Right.
No one else, no one else knows that. Like that sort of thing. I feel like is pretty well reflected in the numbers. But I don't know. Is there still an edge or angle around that?
I think there could be an edge for some of these teams, especially like if the market is overrating losses of guys who opted out before the season last year.
Okay.
I mean, there's some guys that played for Oregon who were on Oregon's team, but they didn't actually play. They opted out, right? So from that standpoint, those guys went early in the draft, but they didn't actually play. So that's not really a loss off the 2020 team. And I think there are a couple instances like that. Micah Parsons at Penn State, obviously. You got a couple other big-time dudes who went very high in the draft, and people are going to look at that and say, oh, yeah, but if you're not really paying attention, you're not realizing, wait, he opted out last year. He didn't actually play. You can evaluate their defense without downgrading them for a loss of somebody who wasn't impacting that defense.
Yeah, and Oregon's the perfect case. You're like, oh, they lost a really good lineman. Well, no, they lost him 2 years ago, technically. Yeah. You think about that. There was a lot of that going on. And the eligibility thing, too, is kind of wild. I remember when they were negotiating the baseball stuff. That was such a big thing. If they were going to give them a year of service time, completely different kind of story there. But especially with these college kids, what are you going to, redshirt a season and then they play or you decide to not use your red shirt and then they play 5 games or something.
Right.
We can't all play for Central, or who's the little team that just played every freaking week? Central Missouri.
Oh yeah,
Bears. Yeah. So they were every week. They were on my TV. I'm like, this team's all about it. They're playing.
Going around collecting them checks, barnstorming.
Let me ask you one more question about building a prayer. Actually, we'll do a quick rapid fire here. Do you view a combined weight between what you know about the coaching staff and what you know about the players? These coaches, they may only get threes, a couple of fours, a couple of threes, and a bunch of twos, but they always get the most out of them. Therefore, this is a team that I think their floor is probably 5 wins, even though they don't necessarily have a star-studded roster, right? Do you do a little bit of weighting between coaching and player?
I do. For a couple reasons. One, there are some staffs out there who I think I kind of hate this term, but it's apt. They chase stars. Right. They might have bonuses in their contracts to go after recruits who are rated highly. And we know that's actually a thing. You guys can Google it if you want to figure out who I'm talking about here. But those guys may not be the best fit for your team. And in some cases they're available, even though they're highly rated stars, because maybe they hit a teacher or I don't know, some other reason, right? Sure. Where other schools are not going to take them. But if you want to get your contract bonus, you're taking them. So then your recruiting score is going to show more highly because you did get a guy with a lot of athletic talent who also his bust factor, I think, would be higher just based on lack of self-control, personal behavior, those type of things.
Of course.
There are other guys who I think are smart enough to realize they're not going to win a national title do not care about star ratings. And look, stars are going to be just law of large numbers. Like they're going to be less accurate the larger out you go, right? Like we're going to nail the 5 stars. We're going to do a really good job on the 4 stars. Our 3 stars on average are going to be better than the 2 stars. But I think at a certain point, it does make sense to recruit for your scheme. And like if you want to win a natty, recruit all the talent you could possibly get and fit your scheme to that talent. If you want to recruit to go to a bowl game or to have a special year, which to you is 8 wins, get the guys that fit you and find some market inefficiencies on the recruiting trail there. So I do weight the coaches who do that higher because their recruiting score is not going to reflect perhaps the right fit of that talent of those teams. I think Northwestern, since we already named them, is a good one. If you bet Northwestern's like season total under every year, you're losing your ass.
Yeah, sure.
Because Pat Fitzgerald doesn't try to win games in blowouts. He tries to play slow. He's a very good, tactical coach. Now he probably runs the ball a little too much, and I know you guys kind of hate that too. They're just constantly just running the ball on first down, running the ball in 2nd and 10. But
I mean, the game's different in college.
Yeah, in college it is. You can go tell that to a service academy. I'm not going to tell them not to run the ball.
That's fair.
You guys gave us a perfect segue. Do you weight passing versus rushing equally when you put together a number?
Yeah, there are some on the extremes, right? Like
okay.
if you're an option team, I do sort of. I was working with Conley on this one day. I think this was like 2015, and we were trying to figure out the Army problem, right?
Sure.
And obviously, like success rate is based on 3 downs and then you punt, right? I said, Bill,
3.5.
Okay, right. Army doesn't view it that way. Army views like they have 4 downs to achieve success. I said, so what if instead of 50% of necessary yards on first and then X on second, X on third, what if you really cut that a lot, right? What if you said
Sure.
you need to gain like 35% of necessary yards on first down, and then all of a sudden Army's success rate made a lot of sense. So for the option teams, I do tend to underweight the importance of success rate based on the traditional way it's measured, because they're more willing to go for it on 4th down because they're trying to use all 4 downs.
Okay.
I also really am very wary of these defensive coaching hires in college.
Another great segue. Do you equally weight offense and defense?
Man, if you're a defensive coaching, like the guys who win as defensive coaches in college are the dudes who basically pick the offensive coordinator who gave them fits. Like Bob Stoops, when he was Florida's DC, he had to go up against a guy named Mike Leach at Kentucky, right? When he gets the Oklahoma job, he leaves Florida as a DC, goes to be Oklahoma's head coach. He hires Mike Leach to go run the air raid at Oklahoma. Saban basically got Lane Kiffin because of all the stuff that Hugh Freeze and them were doing to him. And he went and he's like, all right, well, hey, if you guys want, he even warned us, if you guys want the game to be played this way, we'll play it this way, right? So I don't necessarily underweight defensive coaches automatically, but I do care who they hire as their OC, because college is such a high point environment, man. Like you can't be like, I'm down on Dave Aranda, what he did last year at Baylor. I missed on that. I thought hiring Larry Fedora, who's a wide open air raid, up tempo guy from UNC to go coach Baylor as his OC, I thought that was going to work out really well. And he's punting on like 4th and 2 from the 38 in opponent territory. They're just run, bail me out QB on 3rd and 7 a lot. And like, this is like you're coaching like you're still a DC.
Yeah, there's probably
it's crazy that we always say this sort of stuff about the NFL too with I don't know, people like Mike Zimmer, people like who we have up in I can't think of our guy's name up in Denver now. Fangio.
Yeah.
Fangio. Like guys like that, we say that like, hey, guess what? I said that before Fangio ever got hired away from Chicago. I said someone's going to hire him and be unhappy about it in a couple of years. And it's because they like, I don't know if it's I'm a head coach now. I have control. I want to be the man who's here. But like, you need to, if you're a defensive minded head coach, you need a whole nother guy. Like it has to be complete separations of power, like the government, where it's like, the offense is your thing. Like you handle the offense. Like I need someone who can take care of that because I'm not an offensive mind, even though I am, the ultimate leader here. And I mean, it is even, stuff like that is refreshing to us because boy, they just can't get that. They can't get that through their thick skulls. But I think what Drew was kind of asking too, we kind of got a little off track with coaching, which was good. It was interesting to hear some of that stuff, but just like overall team rating. Like if you're rating how it, a college team, how you weight the skill of their offense versus the skill of their defense. Like, because we do it pretty low on defense right now.
Offense is more important.
Yeah, obviously offense was going to be more important, but just how we've adjusted that over the last few years in the NFL based on rule changes, it's been very aggressive at this level because there was, they just keep making it harder for defenders. And it's like, well, it's
same in college.
I'm curious to your thoughts on the last few years in college.
It is. The one difference I would point out in college is there's kind of like a covariance issue, right? There's a lot of teams that can beat up on the bad teams because in college, like in the NFL, pretty much every defense can run, right? Everybody can play man coverage at least a little bit, right? Like nobody's out there just, okay, you can't play any man coverage. All of the DBs are too slow. But at the college level, like that's actually a real thing, and I mean, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the NFL, there are some guys that just can't, or some teams that just can't play man, but I bet you it's probably more dramatic in college, I would think. Because the RPO game in college, right? And we have, instead of 1 yard downfield, we have 3 yards downfield, which then gets abused like 5 and 6 yard downfield to where, in the national championship game, both Ohio State and Bama are like blocking safeties at like 7 yards depth and throwing post routes over their head. It's not that you can't zone that, but you need to be able to play man coverage a lot more. And so I do basically award little bonus points for teams that I'm confident can play man coverage, because otherwise these teams are just crush you with all the RPO stuff, right? Like, because you don't have backers who can run and react to that. You got to be able to play man. That makes total sense. Yeah, it's. I mean, defense is what's a weak link system anyway. Yeah. So that's that's fascinating.
Well, even thinking about like the best team in the NFL playing the worst team in the NFL. I mean, we could get real extreme. I brought up like the Bama playing Citadel. That's not a fair example, but even Bama playing the worst team in the SEC, I think there is. I don't think there's a bigger gulf between Bama and, I don't know, who are we going to call the worst team in the SEC?
I mean, the halftime spread.
Vanderbilt?
Vandy?
Yeah, Vandy last year.
Vandy probably, yeah.
Arkansas used to be the
well, and Kentucky used to be a bit more of a laughing stock, but yeah, that gulf just in one conference is much bigger than what we see. So these teams with this offensive speed, it's like, oh, we're just gonna RPO you, or even just you see some of these triple option teams, like, well, this team isn't fast enough to figure this out, and they have like Navy's quarterback the other year. It's like, well, this guy's gonna mess people up if they don't have anybody who can step up and tackle him. Again, this is awful to watch, but it's just it's gross, and they're going to gain 4 yards of carry and work their way down the field every time. So, defense seems like it matters more because there's offenses that are just too quick for some of the people that don't have the talent.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I do think that the other thing we're really watching here recently is that the best teams in college football they're playing pitch and catch down the field with like remarkable efficiency. It's not just, hey, let's spread them out. Let's hit a bunch, like high success rate through the pass game, ball control through the up tempo pass game. Like they're complete, like their deep accuracy and their EPA on deep throws now has just spiked year over year for about 4 years in a row now. It's going straight up, guys. And they're just getting so much better at throwing the ball down the field. If you don't have the ability to actually hit explosive plays through the air, that is a major red flag to me. I think Texas A&M does a lot of things really well, but I was looking at their passing explosiveness rating by Bill Connolly. Last 3 years, 98th, 97th, 101st.
And you think that's scheme or personnel?
A little both. I think it's a really, really complicated offensive scheme that they asked Mond and those guys to run. Like Jameis is, for all the things he is, football-wise, he seems to kind of get it, at least at the college level. In the NFL, it seems like those a lot of picks. But it's more West Coast ball control. They hit explosive runs, but they don't really hit enough explosive passes, and they just can't trade punches with like a Bama or, LSU with Burrow or, even a Georgia.
Got it.
Yeah, I remember the last time I was excited for them. I was excited for them to they're going to compete. They got Bama right off the, it was the first game, I think. And then, we all saw that go. Was it like a quarter? How long till we had the injury? I think it was first quarter.
Oh, yeah.
So, the season's over.
Yeah. Oh, Vandy is getting run off the field in Omaha right now. They're going to blow my under on this one.
Are they really?
Turkeys, yeah. It's 9-0.
You're from Mississippi State. Okay.
Yeah, Mississippi State, good job. But we didn't need all these garbage runs, guys. We could have just done it respectfully.
My roommate in law school played first base for the Bulldogs.
Oh, nice. Let's talk a little bit about the markets. I'm curious what your opinion is on this stuff, because obviously making numbers is one half, understanding how the markets are moving and all of that is the other important half of a handicap. What do you see? I guess, what's your expectation this offseason coming into this regular season in terms of who are the market makers? Is this push of Circa getting out there, hanging the early numbers? Like, is this sticking? What markets in the offseason have you seen move the most or maturing the fastest? Is who's taking the biggest limits? Do you have any perspective on this just from kind of looking around at what's going on? Yeah,
so I think Circa has really been good for college football. I mean, I don't really play there NFL wise, but I assume they've been doing the same thing NFL, coming out with the numbers early. Yeah. They were one of the first to market with a lot of the numbers, at least among the brick and mortars. Do we count DraftKings and FanDuel as okay? So they also they also got stuff out pretty early, but their limits are not quite what Circa is, as far as I'm aware. So I think Circa's been really good for the game. Like it used to, and their numbers, by the way, are sharper. It used to be, BOL that would come out on Sunday afternoons, and like I would have my live show on Sunday afternoons, and you could just hear me clicking away, and I'd be like, all right, 500, hit the timer for 60 seconds, go bet another game, and then like when the timer's up, you could go back and bet it again, assuming that it hadn't moved, too much, and then because it was it 60 seconds you had to wait on
61.
61, right?
It always says 61, which is weird.
So yeah, I think it's good that you're having a legitimate book like Circa come out, make sharp, like they make good numbers. I mean, obviously I want to bet into them, and they move, but like they're not on an average Sunday afternoon to get to kick off on Saturday. They're not moving like a touchdown nearly as often as they used to. Like we used to get some stuff that was just, it felt like stealing, and now like you're like, oh, I got a 4-point differential here. Now that feels like stealing. Before it was like, this is what are we doing here?
No, that makes sense.
Have you guys played anything so far preseason?
No,
college football? No,
not in college. And actually, like where I get most of my action down, there isn't anything. Like there's no win totals up. There's no, other than I think I saw a Heisman market for a hot second. It's gone. Who
are we betting against? It's not going to be Radler, so
I can put a $10,000 bet down on the kayaking for the Olympics, but I can't bet anything else for college football at bookmaker right now.
It's just crazy. Like, what is Chris doing?
I honestly, they're either taking their sweet time to get a really good number because they're concerned about the same stuff that we already talked about, maybe they've ceded the space to Circa and they're going to let Circa do the market making for them and then open those. I don't know. It's a good question.
It's a lot easier to let someone else just open them up, take a bunch of bets, adjust them, and then open them like 2 weeks later and be like, oh yeah, not everybody lives in Las Vegas. Although Circa will be opening in Iowa in August. I will be able to make that 20-minute drive and bet into Circa numbers this fall. So pretty excited about that.
You're in Minnesota?
Yep. Real southern Minnesota. So I can pop across the border and do it. I'm still in a shady offshore state,
Same.
Yeah.
Although I love our brick and mortar sponsor, of course, for CBS and 24/7. So
yeah, of course, and we of course WinBet is, I'm sure, hard at work getting their numbers up as well. So you know how it goes. But ultimately, it just doesn't. There haven't been a ton of win total markets. I've seen a little bit of interesting stuff here and there, but not a lot that I can really bet into yet. I guess maybe they're waiting for this transfer portal to be over. Maybe they're waiting for some of the other sports to die down because they just know like it's not gonna. I guess. It wouldn't really serve you if you were a book that was primarily writing tickets on NBA playoffs and Euro soccer and then, oh, by the way, you have this market over here and only the sharp people are coming in and walking the numbers that suck. Like they just want to let things cool down a little bit until they can get a little bit more volume. I guess that wouldn't be shocking, but they're going to run up against the season's starting here pretty soon because it's almost July, guys. So
we got like 9 weeks away now.
Yeah. So I guess as you're doing
look at the schedule too, there's definitely a week 0 where there's like 5 games, and the best one is probably Nebraska, Illinois. That's not great. And then there's a Wednesday game, and then oh my god, like how many Thursday games? It looks like Thursday, September 2nd. There's like 15 damn games. And then you have Friday the 3rd where there's like 7 or 8 games, and then that Saturday is obviously a big old mess. So I don't mind it. I don't mind a week 0. I like when they just surprise you with a. I've been out like you said, I've been out in Vegas for week 0. I've definitely bet on Hawaii in like a game where it's like this is the only football game on right now, and it's Hawaii, and it's August, and this is all we can do. So I can get down with that.
Yeah, it's also possible. Maybe the books in Vegas make more. It's an event to go out and bet college football game of the year lines, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like that's a destiny. Like people go out there in the summer and they do that, and maybe that's why they're a little bit more aggressive at getting this stuff up, and so the offshores have just sort of seeded that ground. But I guess did speaking of the game of the year lines, like you've gone out to Vegas before and gone to the Golden Nugget and wait in line and to whack the ones that are just insane.
Mm-hmm. What do you get? You get to bet a couple, and then you got to get back in line and hope nobody else moves the other ones you want, and hope the ones you actually hit did move. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah, when you get back there, you're right. There are some places that are like that. Like you can bet 5, and then you got to go back to the back of the line again, and and you can go back again.
There's got to be some collusion though among everybody in line, probably, right? Like,
if you're not bringing a couple guys together,
Okay.
That's.
You've been through that before?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I did pull up WinBet. They have win totals for it looks like pretty much every single D1 team here, and then also not only conference winners but conference division winners. Which don't get me started on that. Conferences shouldn't have divisions. That's stupid anyway. But the Heisman market. But apparently everybody has divisions now. Pacific 12 Conference, Western Division, South and North Division rather, and then the ACC Coastal. For some reason we don't have ACC. What is the other half of the ACC?
The Atlantic. Well,
Atlantic.
They don't really want to post.
I think it's the Legends and the Coastal or something.
Legends and Leaders. Oh,
that was the old Big Ten.
As a Big Ten fan, that was like embarrassing. What are we doing with Legends and Leaders?
They were like making fun of themselves, like, "Oh, we're the Big Ten." That was the reason they don't post the ACC Atlantic Division is because they don't want to throw up, Clemson minus 1400.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to bet into that anyway. And again, going back to the markets too, I do wonder if you hang markets for this and you take good limits, you're not going to get rec money. Like rec money is betting on the Clippers game tonight. Rec money is betting their baseball team. Rec money is betting, we have the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like they're not like, oh man, I'm gonna piss away a bunch of money on college win totals. No, you're gonna take a bunch of good bets, sharp money. So like if you don't feel like taking that, fucking leave it down. Wait for these sports to finish up.
Yeah, that's not crazy. Anyway, so I guess if you were trying to kind of use any kind of market insight to check your own numbers, would you look at Circa at this point?
I would. Now look, the other ones do kind of move and follow. So if you want it, like the other two places that I know that have hung game of the year, Circa, Nugget, and then both the original DFS places have as well. And I think there's a couple offshores who have the game of the year stuff going on right now. I get those promo emails like every single day. So I'm sure you guys do too. If once you're on the media list, you can't get off. But yeah, I would look at Circa to make sure that the stuff is moving in the right direction. They also had a little bit of a jump, I think, because they weren't first. Now they were first to take better limits, but they were probably about a week late, I would say, compared to some of the offshores and some of the smaller limit shops. So they probably got to see an indication. Like I don't make my living doing this. It's a decent supplemental income during college ball season, but like I'm not somebody who needs to wait so long so I can put down, $20K on a game. To have the line get hammered into shape. Like if I can get a couple whacks at it, with a comma in there, I'm feeling pretty good.
That's that. Speaking our language.
So I don't mind hitting it on Sunday.
I like it. Of course. Generally, the game of the year is the win totals you've seen. Anything especially stand out to you? Like,
yeah. So there's a couple. So on the Cover 3 podcast, we've been doing the Around the Clock series, which is where we bring on like the team expert from 24/7 Sports, and
okay, cool.
We've done a bunch of these so far. I think we'll probably do about 30 in all, and it's basically just me sitting down with these guys, peppering them with questions from my spreadsheet, trying to figure out what the hell happened and why, and are they going to be any better here? And the one that jumped out to me game of the year wise, which I popped and then popped again, and honestly, I would bet this up until it hit 17, is Ohio State hosting Oregon. For a couple reasons. Number one, I think Ohio State has by far the best receiving core in the country this year. They had a kid who couldn't start for them in Jamison Williams transfer to Alabama, where he's expected to likely start. So we're talking about the number 4 receiver at Ohio State is likely going to be a starter for the Tide. Okay.
Holy shit.
They got several first-round receivers, or I don't want to call them first-rounders, several top 100 picks at receiver on Ohio State. I feel confident saying in, Wilson, Olave, and then Fleming and Smith and Jigba. Like, those are some dudes. Now, the last 2 names people don't know because we saw them as recruits, but yeah. Tom Herman got fired for a reason, and part of that reason was that Ohio State went in their backyard and stole those dudes from the state of Texas and brought them to Columbus. They've got a quarterback in
all the time in Minnesota.
Yeah. Right, of course. Well, who was the last? Joe Mauer, right?
Joe Mauer was recruited. He was offered the quarterback spot down there in Tallahassee. He was a little better at baseball. But yeah, Christ, he was an athlete.
Yeah, he was.
And also, oh man, I almost went to the wrong. I was going to say Danny Werfel, wrong college.
But
I hung out with his uncle.
Oh, nice. There you go.
He's from up here.
So everybody's all worried about the loss of Justin Fields,
Sure.
But we've seen CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud was one of the most improved recruits in the country from his junior to senior year as a quarterback. He was a Cali kid, moves around well, really good arm. I trust Ryan Day to score points in pretty much any situation. And then I heard from talking to the Oregon guys that their major concern early in the year is going to be the secondary. I was like, well, I don't know. Given what we just talked about with Ohio State receivers here, and Oregon has a lot of uncertainty in the secondary. Yeah,
Might just be Ohio State team total over 39.5, whatever it takes.
Oh, I think it'll be like 45.
I love that. What's your gut reaction to people who are talking up Miami against Alabama?
I mean,
seems like a dangerous game to play.
It sure does.
I did see a message board post the other day that De'Aaron King was bowling without a brace on, so he seems to be recovered from the ACL. He blew his ACL in the bowl game. I think Miami's offensive line is going to be better this year. I think they'll protect better, but you got to be able to win one-on-ones on the outside against Nick. That's typically the pattern we see. Everybody talks about mobile QB, but I don't know that Miami really had a big time difference maker at receiver. And they lost a lot of important guys on the defensive line. It's not a game I'm rushing to bet, but I don't 17 is not enticing enough for me. If you gave me 3 touchdowns, I'd probably just be stupid and take it. But it's not one. Are you
kind of surprised Miami took this game? I mean, you play Alabama week 1. You can kind of really do something pretty terrible to your whole organization. It can really send your whole organization skidding.
You can, but worse teams have Duke did it a couple of years ago. Really,
sure.
Duke's going to play Alabama in the.
Someone has to play a week 1.
Yeah.
Alabama will have a week 1 game every year.
They pick on whatever ACC team they want to wipe off the map for the next 5 years. Apparently.
Hey, Wake Forest, come down to Tuscaloosa.
I did play against Alabama in one game of the year line. I took Florida plus 14.5 in the swamp.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. I trust Dan Mullen to score points. I think he's actually he's a good recruiter. Florida fans hate him because he's not Georgia's level of recruiting, but I think he's a really good game day coach. I think their defense will be improved this year. It had a lot of moving parts last year that I think were affected by COVID. So I think they'll be better. That's not an easy place to go play when Florida's good. I think they will be good. They have two options at quarterback in Emory Jones and also Richardson. I have confidence that Dan Mullen's going to get good quarterback play. Like, he's gotten really good quarterback play out of guys who had no business playing the position at all at Mississippi State prior. They have some decent weapons on the outside. I think their blocking will be better. So I made that game 11. So cool. 14.5. I said that's something I'm definitely going to take.
You're on the right side of a key number. That's the way you take a dog. That's the way you play the game of the year. That's the way I was always taught you play the game of the year, Marcus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and even
that one didn't
NFL,
move, by the way, very much.
We've talked about that with NFL. There's some of those markets where we keep track of it. We just have never had the, time or wanted to tie things up on some of those. But some of our theses on certain teams that we're like, oh, we should bet against this team this year. We said, do we really want to take their team total under? Or do we find 3 games against teams that we think are underrated and we think they're overrated and bet them in, July? And then, of course, we track that and we're like, oh, my God, this moved 10 points. Like, what are we doing betting, regular season win totals when, especially with the NFL, they, there's books that will release prices for every single game all year long right off the bat in the summer.
God, I wish we had that.
Do you have any?
That would be wild for college.
Do you have any absurd closing line value memories of game of the year stuff? Like, I bet this game plus 21 and they closed favorites.
That
I have a bunch that I have a couple that have moved like 12, 14 points.
Wow.
In college, you'll get that. In the NFL, I don't know if you'll get 2 touchdown moves, but
if you were high on the LSU Tigers preseason with Joe Burrow, you probably had some numbers that were stupid come kickoff.
That was wild.
Yeah.
Oh, the other 2 game of the year stuff I hit. I took Florida plus the 10 against Georgia. That's before Georgia got 2 really impact transfers. So Arik Gilbert, the LSU tight end, he transferred back to Georgia, and then Clemson's best cornerback, Darion Kendrick, who got booted for the gun and drug stuff, he's also transferred to Georgia. So Georgia just got 2 all-American caliber in the conversation type players to transfer in. So I don't love Florida plus 10 quite as much against UGA as I did when I bet it. But 2 I still really like. I played against BYU in 2 early spots. BYU returns very little production off last year's team. They obviously lost a generational quarterback for them. But what I think people are underrating here is that BYU almost didn't get to play last year because they're an independent. And so when all these conferences close ranks and say we're going to play conference only, BYU really had to scrap and claw for a schedule. And the schedule they got, like BYU typically has a reputation of doing kind of like what Notre Dame does, where they go and they play hard teams, right? Like they usually play a difficult schedule. Going 6-6 or 7-5, given the quality of the schedule they play, is usually pretty good. BYU played a crap schedule last year. Like, they just played a bunch of cupcakes. And when they finally played a decent team, Coastal Carolina got them, Yeah. But like, I think now that their schedule is returning to a normal like BYU difficulty, and the fact they lost a ton of really good players, what did I take? So I took Utah and laid 6.5 in Provo, and then I also I laid 3.5 with Boise State. I thought Utah should be over a touchdown. They got a lot of really quality transfers in, and I trust Boise too. I think
BYU was a legitimate favorite against them last year, and only lost because they had a couple of D linemen that were unavailable for that game. That I remember somebody told me about, and I was like, "Do those guys matter?" Okay, then I'll bet BYU. Yep, they mattered a lot. It turned out.
I'm just, not only game of the year stuff. I'm seeing just like week 1. Week 0, like I joked about the Cornhuskers Illini game, but that's up. It's Huskers minus 9.5. This is a weird one. Like, you look at this 5 years ago, it is Northwestern favored by a touchdown over Michigan State. Like those programs went opposite directions here. This is why maybe I don't bet into college so much. I would probably I'm going to take Michigan State. That's a better program. Give me a
Michigan
touchdown.
State is a weird one for me for a couple of reasons. Like, so number one, they had one of the latest coaching hires of the season because D'Antonio decided to retire, and then they went and they got Mel Tucker from Colorado, right? So they barely got a spring practice in. he got barely got time to meet with these guys before the COVID shutdown, but like they barely got a signing class in because it was so late in the process. They were a true like a year zero team, if you want to use that term, for a new coaching staff. They also initially, Mel Tucker, when he got there, they were very much like stodgy defensive coordinator. Oh my God, like is he really going to look what he did in? I forgot one of his early games. Like the run rate on first, second down was just horrendous, and he basically said, we really couldn't pass. Like, we're not there yet to be able to throw the football as a team. I was like, okay, that's concerning. But he got a lot better late in the year. So, like, Michigan State could be better this year, legitimately, just from coming together and having practice time together, You know
what? That's my game of the year look. Spartans +7, week 1.
Wow,
I could see it. Northwestern doesn't play to bet. They don't blow anybody out.
Northwestern will be there, and they're fine winning by a field goal. Andy, they are not going to.
It's Big Ten. Run, punt.
Yeah, plus you can shit talk Rovell after. That'll be great, man.
And you know what? You know what else? We joked about Penny Sewell. Northwestern did lose. They did lose a really good offensive lineman. So I think they had two first rounders, didn't they? Or I'm thinking TCU. I'm thinking the other purple team. They had a couple high end net talent.
No. Didn't Northwestern have a corner too?
They did. Yeah, they had some NFL talent they lost.
I have Slater marked as an opt out, by the way. So I don't think the offensive tackle actually played for the Wildcats last year, but the corner did.
that might be true. This is how much college football I watched.
I just pulled out my sheet. I was like, yeah, he's got the opt out next to him.
So the
we need you here.
Yeah, this is it's too many moving parts. No way to keep track of all this. Is the SEC just real quick through the conferences? SEC still the king?
Yeah.
And after that, is. Big Ten after that?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Top to bottom, yeah.
Big 12 or ACC?
ACC, because I think like you might think Iowa State's is the third best team if you combine them. But then I think you have like the North Carolina, Miami. I'm very high on NC State this year, by the way. They had a kid who played for him last year who got hurt at quarterback, but I think he's pretty good. Devin Leary.
Our buddy will be loving.
I know, yeah, Will is.
He's gonna love to hear this. Yeah.
They've got a bunch of dudes who are like, they won't be first team All-Americans, but they're like legitimately honorable mention All-American type guys. They bring back a lot.
He's not Pete Prisco, but we love him.
Oh my God!
Make sure he hears this part.
I will. These are all the CBS guys.
I'm marking this timestamp down.
I played NC State over 6 wins. I thought that was
good deal. I like
that was
this.
one of the
he already tried to talk us into that.
I remember him trying to.
I think he had a market for only conference games.
You know who put that up was the Nugget.
Yeah, it was conference only, and he was like, "Oh, this is a gimme, and this." Oh,
that number they put up was a mistake. They had like 2.5. It had to be a mistake. 2.5 conference wins.
Oh, that's not right. Okay,
see, we take it with a grain of salt when Will says it, but when you're here, and
he's paying attention to the North Carolina State numbers, so he picks up the mistake.
Yeah, that stuck out to me. I was like,
palpable error. Sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, so ACC will put above the Big 12 next, though, and then Pac-12 fifth of the Power 5.
Yeah, the Pac-12
is American.
I think the Pac-12 is better than the American, but
I would hope so.
Like the bottom of the American is bad. Like we talk about how these good AAC teams are good, and they are, but like there's nobody in the Pac-12 that's as bad as like East Carolina, or those type of teams.
Yeah, and Pac-12 has kind of come up a little bit. They had a nice little bowl season last year. They might surprise some people. Who the hell knows? Okay, so give me 3 teams that you feel high confidence finish in the top 25 that are outside of the Power 5.
Oh, they're out of the Power 5. Cincinnati.
Okay.
Just go right to the American.
Yeah, pretty much. I gotta think about Coastal schedule here. Cincinnati for sure.
I don't even know what the preseason 25 looks like.
I think Boise. Probably.
Okay. I like that call.
I'm trying to think about like some ones that are not just super obvious, I guess.
See Minnesota.
They're in the Big Ten, man. They don't count.
Well, I thought you said that aren't in the top 25 already.
No. I'm saying outside, non-Power 5. Yeah, non-Power 5 that finish in the top 25.
USC.
Even in
USC. Jesus.
We just want to keep shitting on them being out.
I'll actually go Louisiana.
Oh, look at that, Dan. Dan says Louisiana.
Yeah. Oh, good. Interesting little synergy there. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, Louisiana. Now, here's an interesting parlay. This is the Billy Napier is the coach at LSU parlay in the first week or two. If ULL beats Texas and then UCLA upsets LSU, I'm sitting here thinking, what job is Billy Napier waiting on at this point? Like, he turned down Auburn, he turned down South Carolina, he didn't want Arkansas. He probably wants to stay in the SEC from what we think. Like, what other job is he thinking going to come open? Because Georgia and Florida probably are not. A&M's definitely not. Jimbo's locked up for another 5 years. What job is coming open? He probably thinks LSU is.
Oh, that's interesting. Do you think LSU's job's coming open?
I think they are one of the most like high variance teams entering the season. Like,
how many wins does Big O need to save his job?
I would say like at least 8. If he goes 7-5, given all the stuff swirling there, I could see something.
What is a fair price on under 7.5?
What is a fair price on under 7.5?
And just to be clear, Louisiana
plus 200-ish.
Is this the Raging Cajuns?
Probably like plus 225.
Plus 225. Okay, interesting.
I'm back in Louisiana. It used to be Louisiana Lafayette. They shortened it, right?
Yeah, they want to be called the University at Louisiana or something like that. But I just put ULL because I'm not.
Yeah, they're always going to be ULL.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, good. This is fascinating info. No love for no repeat performance from the Chanticleers.
I really trust their quarterback. I don't know, that was tough.
They caught lightning in a bottle. It felt like, yeah. Okay.
Like, I think they like their floor is probably 8-4. Their ceiling's probably 11-1.
How about Liberty?
Oh my God, my kids sing that.
You know that they that Hugh Freeze plays Ole Miss this year?
He does? Oh
yes.
Shit. What's that game of the year line?
Yeah, what is that? Looking for that.
Well, we don't have to look it up, but just in general, your temperature on Liberty. And Malik Willis in particular.
I think Malik Willis is really good. Horse. Like I would say Heisman, if I had to take somebody, it's probably CJ. Just because of the dudes he's throwing to.
Okay.
Like you maybe could take Bryce, but like how many Bama guys in a row would that be? Well, I guess Burrow, but you had Tua and then you had Devontae last year. But like I think betting for the Heisman wise, betting on the QBs who we knew were legitimate studs, right? Quarterback recruiting was interesting. So we had the year that we had Trevor and Justin. And those guys were just obvious. It was like, oh, yeah, this is different. Like we don't normally have this at the high school level. And then like the next year, it kind of took off. Like they're like, okay, Sam Howell and Jaden Daniels stuff, like they're good players, but they're not the same level. Like somebody has to be number one in the QB rankings, but like their numerical grade was not the same. But you go back to like Bryce Young, DJ at Clemson, CJ to a lesser extent, but like all three of those guys we knew could play. It wouldn't surprise me like if you get not great value, but okay value on one of those just because they're not quite as known commodities. DJ being the most known because he filled in for Trevor when Trevor had COVID.
That was wild, where everyone just like, oh shit, like he's really good too. And I made the USC joke, and I'm looking at some rankings now, but their week 1 opponent in San Jose State is in some people's top 25.
Talk about fool's gold.
I remember did David Fail? Is this David Fail's school? Is that where he went?
It is, but the quarterback is not. It's not David Fails now.
No. But a few years ago, I had a buddy who was like, "This guy is like a surefire NFL star," and like, I should call him after this because I forgot how wrong he was on that.
You know who the QB is? It's Nick Starkel.
Oh wow! Really?
He was at Texas A&M. One of my favorite recruits ever because his dad actually held my umbrella for me at the opening in Elite 11, which was great. So all my equipment didn't get all wet, and he pulled it off to the side. So that was awesome. They could chuck it around though. Brent does a really good job coaching there. Like, I don't think you're going to upset USC, but like they're a team that can consistently score points, backdoor people. Like defensively, probably not.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and they don't even open it. Looks like USC opens at them, but they play Southern Utah first. I'm actually seeing Ball State and Buffalo in the top 25 too. Some action up there. These are the teams I care about because the weekend.
That's got to be last year's.
That's got to be last year's. Yeah.
It says this was updated. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like this was updated off of last year. This was the end of last year's season. So Buffalo loses that running back, right?
Well, you know who Buffalo also lost, right? Their head coach.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because because Les Miles got fired at Kansas, and Buffalo had a lot of important transfers leave for Kansas.
Is that an upgrade of a job, Buffalo to Kansas?
It's a big. It's a Power 5 job, man.
Yeah, you get the Power 5 check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, recruiting to Buffalo is really, really hard. Can you honestly expect to sustain that level of hit rate on your recruits at Buffalo year after year? Probably not.
Do you remember that tall ass quarterback we kept playing on Buffalo 2 years ago, Drew? I think it was.
Oh, yes.
My God, he was fun. They were
the one whose dad made him declare for the NFL when he definitely wasn't ready to get picked by the NFL.
Those games were really fun to watch though, because we just go Buffalo team total overs and just play. But yeah, recruiting. It's like how we always talk about Pepperdine. Oh man, how do you recruit people to Pepperdine? That must be rough. Especially when it's tennis or golf where they're actually really, really good. But yeah,
Pepperdine women's tennis is really good.
Oh yeah, no, they're very good at golf and tennis, and it's it's effing Malibu, but come to Buffalo where it sucks all year round. It's pretty much Canada. 30 inches of snow every day. Yeah, I can get it. Tyree Jackson, somebody hit that. And thanks, Dan, in the chat.
Dan's all over it, man.
Dan is all over this.
Yeah, Iowa game of the year thoughts. Iowa State feels like they're a little bit of a positive buzz team that probably underwhelms. That's just my gut. I don't really have anything to back that up.
No, I agree with you on that. Ultimately, so Iowa State, I don't know where they take their next step. They extremely well coached. Everybody loves Matt Campbell. They return a ton of experience. But what does the next step look like for them? The only thing they really lack consistently is explosion on the outside, but they don't necessarily play for that all that much. They don't have a ton of dynamic receivers. They had a lot of stuff go right for them last year. I really believed that last year, if you were going to get Oklahoma and your name's not Texas, you need to find a window to do it. And they almost did it. They got them one of the two times, and Oklahoma got them in the rematch. That was probably the worst Oklahoma team we've had in the last 5 or 6 years.
Had to be, right? No.
Yeah. Iowa State, I think, is a good team, but Iowa also kind of has their number. They play them very well. They don't try to do a lot of Iowa State's really good at getting you caught up. You want to play this wide open offense, and they just kind of gum up your system a lot, like how Staley does in the NFL, quite frankly. And a lot of coaches in college, including Clemson, went out and studied what Iowa State was doing defensively. But I was like, well, screw that. We're just going to line up 2 tight ends.
Yeah, have you met our tight ends?
If you want to drop 8, that's cool. Drop 8 into this,
What is that line
Wham scheme?
Did you have that?
I had 3.5 on Iowa. Somebody that's the only college football play that I've made all season.
So Iowa's favored by 3.5?
No, 3.5. They were dogs. It's
I'm gonna have to get the points.
It's in Ames. It's in Ames.
I'm gonna try to get 7. There's a guy in the only fantasy football league that I actually takes halfway serious, and I travel home for big. He's got an Iowa State tattoo, and I think I can probably get 7 points off him.
Ooh,
because he'll be. I mean, he just gets. It's at his house, so he gets pretty drunk, and by the end of it, he's talking Seneca Wallace days and how the clones.
Ooh, actually, you can get 5. You can get 5.5 now. So
I'm getting 7.
I scrambled to get the right side of the 3, and now I can get more points. So presumably you can get 7.
I'm getting 7 from him.
Well, that'll be a fun one though. It's early in the season. I think it's week 2. That's the best game on the card, week 2, maybe.
One other thing.
Oregon, Ohio State's the game of the year, week 2. But yeah, go ahead.
You got a couple teams that didn't play last year. How do you?
That's true.
So they hung a 3.5 on Old Dominion, and I'm like, look, Old Dominion wasn't good in 2019. They had a bunch of guys transfer out. They have a head coach who's never been a head coach. I'm going to go ahead and take the under 3.5 here. If you look at that schedule they have, they're not favored in many games. I know that's probably kind of a boring bet, but the money spend is the same. So
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Who else didn't play? Like
New Mexico State did not play. And then the New York Times national champions for avoiding COVID, UConn Huskies. New York Times named them national title.
Wow.
So it was those
That's
three.
Like UCF
do we have one other didn't play?
The Ivy League.
Well, yeah.
They just stopped sports altogether.
Yeah, so they're going to beat Hampton. But I don't know that they're necessarily favored at UTEP.
This is good info, man.
I don't know. Old Dominion, I thought the number should have been 2.5. So 3.5 is something I'm into.
I couldn't come up with a game of the year line for Liberty, Mississippi. They're afraid to hang it.
They're cowards right now.
Cowards, afraid to hang it. It's weak.
I forgot there was a few
6th,
teams
late in the
did
season.
The total in that's going to be 78.
Fun as hell. God, I can't wait for that game. I'm just excited to watch Liberty in general. They're a fun team. All right, let's. I think we've taken up so much of your time. Let's wrap up with a couple just real quick opinion questions for you. I know since I love attending a college football game. I would, if you gave me the choice, I would pick college football over NFL for attendance. 10 out of 10. The atmosphere, the tailgating, all of it is superior.
Way better.
And you're a Florida guy. You can travel the South. You've been to many of these places, I'm sure. Give me a couple of tips here. Favorite venue?
So it probably is LSU. Yeah, no, I mean I'm biased. My wife went there, but the tailgating it's unreal. It's not just burgers and dogs or ribs. I mean, you have people making etouffee and having literal crawfish boils on the sidewalk. It's like going to Mardi Gras 12 times a year. And then the stadium, right there on the Mississippi with the sun setting, you get, I don't know what it holds, probably 95 or something like that. That's a pretty crazy atmosphere, especially if you've gone and done it at night. I think Auburn is actually kind of underrated special. It's small town feel, but then it's okay, small town, bam. It's whoa. Yeah. And their games are always somehow crazy, on the field. So it's, that's a good one.
I've been there. That is a great environment.
We're getting a late Old Dominion quote in here with the Heineke playoff start. It was a big year. And honestly, he played really well. That was
he's a top 5 backup coming into this season.
The Washington guy?
Yeah. That was absolutely a fun game that absolutely should not have been a fun game.
Have you seen his workouts on Instagram?
No, are they legendary?
Oh, they're crazy. He works out with this guy that does all these like single arm bench press and you're balancing yourself on a bend with one leg as you do as a deadlift. It's pretty wild.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that's good.
Other tailgating spot.
Look at us talking ODU Monarch football.
A lot of Monarch talk.
South Carolina for the tailgating. Their fans are really dedicated. They actually have a train, they have a rail that goes all around the stadium with a bunch of old train cars that they've converted into suites that you can rent out that have full bar and whatnot. It's pretty cool. They'll tailgate in an old box car that's souped up now. That's a good time.
Awesome. Best tailgate I ever got to go to. We did. I was at Florida, Tennessee in Knoxville one year, and I rode the boat down with the volunteer
you did the sailgating.
Navy. Yeah, sailgating. That was so fun. So much fun.
It's different up here because we have to wear coats.
This is in September too, so it was hot. It was awesome.
The last game I went to, I wore 6 layers because it's we had tickets way ahead of time, and it's oh my god, it's gonna be 8 below. And so you're wearing long underwear under jeans with 2 pairs of socks and your winter boots and the coveralls with 2 jackets, and your beer is freezing and you get beat by Wisconsin anyway. You go out there and lose badly and lose the axe. And our tailgating is it's fun, but it's they just add 6 tents to the side of the Buffalo Wild Wings, which is there's a B-dubs 100 yards from the front entry of the stadium. It's just on campus in the middle of everything. So they just throw a bunch of tents on there and you just get drunk in a B-dubs. Oh. It's not quite SEC ball.
That sounds about right for Big Ten, though, I'll be honest. How about top? What's your favorite rivalry game?
Oh man. I think it's Florida State, Miami, just because like even when the teams suck, like they find a way, like the fans really get into it. And then you've had so many good games. There's sort of a weird, like, mutual respect there that you don't really have between like Florida and Florida State. And I think that's primarily because like Florida wouldn't play Miami and tried not to play FSU for a while. Right. But like Miami and FSU is both more, not blue bloods coming up. They both would play each other routinely. And there's a lot of examples like, damn, we didn't just play each other. We would have had probably more national titles. Or if a playoff had been around back then, a lot of those Bowden teams, likely would have been pretty tough outs in the playoffs.
Plus, most of those losses were just insane missed kicks.
Right, exactly. And then you look at it, it's like, oh, wow, that was Michael Irvin being covered by Dion.
In hindsight, you look back at it, like some of those games, and I remember my dad trying to, because I understood how the Super Bowl worked, but I remember like in the early 90s, my dad had tried to like, well, how do they decide who wins college? And he's like, well, it's complicated, and like, oh, so the best two teams play at the end. Well, no, the early 90s were a weird time. It's like, well, there was like 4 really, really good teams that could make a case, like at the end sometimes.
All right,
what's the best trophy?
Ooh.
Best route, because we had this talk about Euros. We said like Scotland and England should be a trophy game, like they do for the Nebraska and Minnesota with the broken chair.
I think it's Floyd of Rosedale. Right, it's the pig.
It's the pig.
Wow.
They play for a pig. It's what Iowa, Wisconsin.
No, that's right? Iowa, Minnesota.
Excuse me, Iowa, Minnesota. Yeah, like I think it's the pig. That's all.
It's a giant. Yeah, it's a giant bronze pig.
That's the giant.
And they've been playing for it. They've been playing for it for like that trophy's like all those Big Ten trophies are like 100 years old. Like they're like it was like the mayor of Iowa City challenged the mayor of St. Paul.
Why is the trophy called Floyd of Rosedale?
It's the name of the pig. I honestly don't remember.
Oh my god.
The little brown jug's cool, but the pig's way better.
All right, last question for you, and we'll cut you loose. Really appreciate this. Was super duper fun. What's the best venue for the national title?
It's the Rose Bowl.
Yes.
It just is. Like there's so many things in media where like, oh, this is incredible, and like these guys with Indianapolis for the combine. I'm like, what? Like, no, man, come on. But like, it's still my background on my phone. Like that's the like with what is it, Sierra Madre? Like the sunset there. That's just crazy. You get up in the press box here, you see that going down. I mean, it's now the grass kind of sucks. I will say, like I was on the field for the FSU Oregon game,
sure,
and it's coming up in clumps. And I was like, oh my god, this is like.
Is that what tripped Jameis?
I'm like, oh well, that or all the butter from the crab legs.
Okay, it was one of the two. Something happened on that play. That was funny. Okay, cool. We were talking to Mattress Mac on Monday, actually, and I kind of asking him what got him into sports betting in the first place, and he was like, "I bet $100,000 on Texas in the USC Texas Rose Bowl." We went to the game; it was unbelievable. It was like after that, I was hooked. I was like, "Yep, okay, sounds about right." So wild stuff. Thanks again for your time. Best of luck to you all throughout the season. Best of luck to the Cover 3 podcast. Where can people find all of your content, and really get in depth with their priors for college football this summer?
Yeah, so guys, all you got to do is follow me on Twitter at BudElliott3. Obviously, on all the podcast apps are on there with the Cover 3 podcast. Yeah, Bud Elliott, the number 3, exactly. 2 L's, 2 T's. I got the blue check from back in the day, so it should come up first.
Very cool. And you're on the Cover 3 podcast. You guys cover college football how many times a week?
So off season 3 times a week, in season 6 days a week. We will be doing. We are going to be bringing back the special where me and Tom, Tom Fernelli, who also makes his own numbers. We're going to be live betting and firing on these lines Sunday at probably halftime East Coast time of the afternoon games in the NFL. So right as they pop at circa.
Outstanding. I was going to ask you that specifically, and it is. I will put that down and be participating vigorously. Yes. This is awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, best of luck rest of the summer. Enjoy your 4th of July. Thank you for all your time. and keep up the amazing work. Really appreciate it. Andy, I'm going to hit the music. Let's
crank it up.
There. All right, take care.
I think
I caught you. I caught you with the mute.
Rose Bowl.
I caught you with the mute.
I'd rather see Tulane used to hold a bunch of Super Bowls.
Oh, but
there was like 3 or 4 Super Bowls.
We must have been keeping him too long. There were a bunch of Super Bowls in Tulane.
I'm sure Tulane had a Super Bowl or 2.
No, come on. Tulane?
Google Super Bowl Tulane Stadium. I bet the first one